Roseanna, could you tell me a bit about yourself and about why you decided to have a SDG week here in UCD?
So I'm a third year neuroscience student in UCD, and over the past 3 years I've been involved with UCD volunteers overseas, and the last year I was the campaigns and communications officer with the organisation. So I guess the reason why we decided to have a Sustainable Development Goal Week was because we wanted to reach out to all the students and staff around UCD and to create awareness of what the SDGs are, because they were created in 2015 by the UN, and they play a huge role in development over the next, say, 15 years. But it's something that not a lot of students or staff know about. So I guess that's why we decided to do this, because we just wanted to create awareness around campus.
Is it true that this week isn't actually organised by UCDVO? It's organised by... could you tell me who it's organised by?
So this week it's mainly organised by Patrick Walsh is head of organising it. And then so he has a lot of teacher assistants that he works with in one of the masters that he teaches. So those teacher assistants also were helping out with organising it. And then within that, there's numerous different groups within a course that we're doing, an elective that we're doing in UCD. And so it's all the students who are helping out. So it's students and Patrick Walsh and his teacher assistants that have been organising it.
Could you tell us about the programme of events here in the college? You don't have to name every one of them, but just you could tell us a bit about the programme. We understand you have all different workshops during the week, don't you?
Yeah, so it started yesterday and Tuesday, and we started off with, there was an ethical fashion display, and there was also a group who were interested in cutting back the amount of smoking that there is around campus in UCD. And then throughout the week we have different events, so different groups target different issues such as gender equality and so on.
What is the feedback like that you're getting here in the college this week?
So a lot, when we started off doing it yesterday, we went around, because we're in the student centre here now where we have the event, and we went around to loads of different students, and not many people actually were aware of what the Sustainable Development Goals were. But I suppose yesterday we definitely reached a couple of hundred students by just walking around, talking to them and engaging them with the different projects that we had on display. And I suppose throughout the week there will be numerous more students that will be touched by the project. Okay,
Rosa, in summary, what is your message to our listeners, both for students in UCD and just listeners in general, on the importance of the SDGs and maybe in how they can get involved in the whole process?
I suppose there's numerous different issues that are happening in the world right now and in Ireland, and every community in the world basically could help if individuals became aware of what the different 17 SDGs were, and I suppose just coming up with different ways of tackling all of the issues, because the SDGs, they range from tackling, say, zero poverty to gender equality, to create a better life on land. So I suppose the take-home message would just be if individuals could just get out there, learn what the SDGs are, and do what they can, I suppose, to just improve their own localities.
Paul, could you tell our listeners a bit first about your professional background and tell us about your involvement and interest in SDG Week here in UCD?
Yeah. So my job in UCD is I'm a professor of international development studies. So the story of my involvement in the SDGs goes back to I've known Professor Jeffrey Sachs for a long time. And I got involved in his what's called Sustainable Development Solutions Network, which was providing academic and technical advice to the UN General Secretary on the post-2015 agenda. I spent a year there in Columbia University and with him during 2014 and 2015, and I also participated in the UN Major Group for Science Technology, which was part of, had a desk and part of the major groups that were negotiating the goals with the 193 nations. So I had a kind of vested interest in actually being part of the agenda that set the goals, and as such I kind of have a responsibility to come home and to make sure they're implemented in Ireland and abroad, but particularly in Ireland and what this project is about is exploring how we'd actually implement them on the UCD campus.
Leave UCD on the side for a second.
Yeah.
What kind of feedback do you think you're getting in Ireland? I don't just mean UCD, but in general in life to the SDGs.
Yeah. So the first thing we have to understand about Sustainable Development Goals is that Ireland, David Donoghue, our ambassador to UN, was a co-facilitator of these goals. So they call us the midwife, in other words, of these goals. And of course, it's another thing altogether to bring them home and implement them. The interesting part about it is that there's different stakeholders thinking about them. So in government, the government are setting themselves up for reporting back on the goals in around 2020 to the UN High-Level Political Forum. So we already now in the Statistics Office have, technical people putting together all the targets and indicators for Ireland, and then they should be ready quite soon. We have people in government thinking about how do we have these more whole of society approaches in our own sort of public policy and implementing these goals. More importantly, right across business in Ireland, like business in the community projects, civil society projects and universities, we're all trying to get a handle on these and, hopefully bed down a little in our own kind of sections of society. We hope we have to start working together and more importantly working with groups in Ireland who've been doing this for years, like environmental groups and Social Justice Ireland. So we all have to kind of come together as one group and articulate ourselves on these social, environmental and economic and governance issues because they're quite generic in general, and we can apply them to in Ireland, and we really have a lot of challenges on the social and environmental and governance spheres at the moment.
And how important is it to have government support in Ireland? And do we have government support, do you think, or are there any individuals in particular who are interested in it, or what do you think?
So for me, government is broader. The way I'm kind of approaching this is that governments have bureaucratic sides. I think the civil servants has lost a lot of power in Ireland over the years. I think really parliamentarians and their quangos and consultants and PR people are dominating too much. But my belief is that the civil servants, these public servants, have a capability and are thinking about how to implement this. I also believe people like President Higgins, who's in charge of our military army, is very keen on this. It's also my belief that all of us can be very active in terms of, maybe thinking up of a new SDG party, which, align ourselves to something quite nice and simple for all of us. But we've got to get ourselves inside government, reform our bureaucratic process, our parliamentary committees, civil society, business and the academics they cannot be locked out any longer. They should be inside a government talking about these issues, negotiating these issues. So we need huge, not just Dáil reform. I think we actually need huge reform of our bureaucratic, our legal and our parliamentary structures to actually implement this. And most countries understand this, that there's huge disconnects now between civil society and nature and environment to policy. And unfortunately, the big businesses are not disconnected, that they find a way into consultants and into PRs and into lobby groups that we're not doing. And we just need reform of those systems. But the SDGs is not just the goals, it's an agenda. And in the agenda, they give these prescriptions about reform of government and governance. And it's worth reading that because we can look at that and see how Ireland could actually make a big kind of structural reform in that area of governance in general.
Just to talk about UCD, there was an SDG week in UCD last year as well, wasn't there? I believe it was called SDGs Awareness Week and it was run by the School of Medicine. Do you know anything about that?
So that was very good. So the great thing about UCD is that we're very highly ranked in development studies. But the great thing about UCD is that it's not just in one area college, right? So people are interacting with Africa through the UCD VOs, but interacting on the social science side, the law side, the engineering side, natural science side, and the medical side. Now, the medics have always been really strong. Paddy Mallon out in Africa with HIV/AIDS, Stephen Gordon on veterinary science, and so on and so forth, and midwifery and health, looking at nursing issues and capacity issues. And to be fair, the health guys were first out of the starting block when they had an SDG 3. This was goal 3, which was basically health and well-being. they basically had a whole week on focus on the medical side of the goals, which is basically SDG 3. But the thing about the goals is that each goal is interrelated. Like, so you can't, achieve something in health without achieving something on both the environmental and economic pillars as well. They're all interrelated. But to be fair to the SDG 3 Awareness Week last year, they did look out for how they'd integrate health across the other goals. And this was the big focus of last year. But yeah.
If any of our listeners want to get involved in the whole SDGs process, what would you recommend?
Well, the first thing is that what we're doing this week is actually what's called a new elective called a discovery module in UCD. And this is open to any student in UCD, and a lot of the students here today are first-year students across many disciplines. But this discovery course is what's called an open learning course, and that means that anybody in Ireland can actually register and sign up for this course next year. Right? So if you want to learn about the SDGs, you could do it that way. The other thing I'd actually recommend is we're also part of a thing called Sustainable Development Solutions Network, which has a thing called the SDG Academy. These are online courses that anybody can sign up to, open access and free, and you can actually do a module online and with for credit in there's 12 modules there at the moment on public health, on human rights, on any aspect of the SDGs. The one thing I would say, and what my students here have said, they're educated people, but going back to Aristotle's politics a bit, people don't naturally understand these issues. Like, there is a little bit of science and know-how and knowledge, and you'll be just so shocked to realise that people are worried about TB now right around the world. And the main reason they're worried about it is antibiotic use in animals. Right? And it's getting into our blood systems, and there's a real concern about eating meat, and not because anything to do with vegetarianism, and it's to do with CO2 and water footprints, but it's also to do with health, that there's a real concern that antibiotic resistance is actually coming from the way we're actually doing intensive meat farming around the world, right? So you just wouldn't know these things if you didn't do this course. You wouldn't. So this kind of being aware, knowing the issues, you literally have to come to UCD, do the discovery course, or go online to the SDG Academy and go through this a little bit slowly and openly. But, you will discover lots of interesting information that you are really... It's not obvious that you'd know these things. And that's why they're important. Yeah.
Was it the SDG Academy, is it?
It's called SDG_Academy. You get it, if you just type that in online, it'll come up. SDG_Academy, yeah.
Rachel, an féidir beag an í fuad féin ancient dún le a hall agus fin gun ceap atá taobh hir den Seachtaine seo.
Well, is dalta céad bhína mé tá mé déanamh stáir ar an Gaeilge agus an Seolaíocht agus Tá mid léir géirí just níos mó ólas thuirt a daltaí UCD faoi na brochanna forbartha in bhúnatha an Seachtaine seo.
Can go dtíreach atá dhéanamh a gcuibh UCD an Seachtaine seo?
Tá mid ag déanamh iirecht daltaí a spreaga chun seachgadí na Seachtaine agus leirling faoi na brochanna agus just on ólas a thuirt, níos mó ólas a thuirt óh mar ceapimid nach bhfuil mór an isig daoine faoi na brochanna seo agus beáirt é scapa níos mó.
Cén sais aseolais a bhfuil si bh fáil?
Tá minic fáil aseolais má. Tá sim ag roinnt daoine ann agus tá glóir tá slú a roinnt mór an seo tá sé go má.
Canig an teachtrach is mó atá got ó thaobh tábhacht na sprochanna seo?
Dar lomsa is é an teachtrach is mó ná gur ceartúing smíanamh níos mó ar an taucií agus conas is féidirling níos mó massa a thuirt goí na daoine timplairing agus an timplacht é féin, mar tá sé anhabhach agus chuirn tá tionchar ar sin go ddéireach ar an féin, so beáirt smíanamh faoi níos mó.
Frank, an féidir nach beag an í Ancient doing fin gula profisiúnta atá gut le a hall agus fin tim atá gut I brochéis na SDGs.
Well, tá mé gobar gláis na hallscoil UCD mar lechttar san acnamíocht. Tá mín seo le tamil fada ó níideag nach a cearastócha agus bhí mé an seo san ollscoil mar dalta freisin agus chu mé th lár an sin feúpla bliain agus tá mé gobar agus ag déanamh taide ar an acnamíocht go háirí cuasaí oibre agus túrastal agus ceard cumanach agus roiide mar sin. Agus tá simigam freisin I gcúrsaí na SDGs agus mar sin de go háirí ó thaobh cuasaí oibre agus cuasaí an imirce. So bhí mé den bhrainn taide faoin imirce agus an torra bín ar an imirce ar tíir éagsúla.
Agus chun caint faoin in imirce tháinig an na torthaí ón déanár amach le déanaí cad ceapan tú faoi seo?
Well, is tócha an buntúir atá agamsa nó gur rud an a bhathaí in imirce agus is tócha bhfuil a lán daoine tá buint leis an acnamíocht ní gachtain ach a lán daoine agus go bhfuil an túr an céine ach gur sáis buntáist an a bhór é an imirce ó thaobh fás an acnamíocht agus féidir ó thaobh cuasaí eile freisin ach sin an sáis buntúir an agam is tócha go bhfuil sé tábhachtach polisithe cearta bheith hagann chun bheith cinnte nach bhfuil aon den sáis curthaí síos nuair atá a lán imircí ag teachtasteach mar hampla ó thaobh cuasaí tíhíocht agus cuasa leasa sóisialt agus mar sin de so crothíonn na himircí a hagan isteach croinn siad annach chud severas agus tá sé tábhachtach go núsáid muid an severas sin chun bheith chun cinú nach gurtar aon den na síos as Beidir má choní tú an áit ag bhfuil a lán imircéist ag teachtasteach nach bhfuil gantanas tíhíocht nó gantanas múnseoirí le haid a fáistí in sna cósanach sin. So beidir go bhfuil gáil a polisithe níos éifeachtaí chun bheith cinnte go mbíonn bua ag gachtainna ón imirce.
Táim sin macóní ag gasán canucha I maiile léir hir agus tá cúpla ceantar sa Raidió sin agus tá a lán in imirce gán agus tá atna go mar cúpla scoilne agus tá fór na náltaí ar na scoilne mar páistí de imirce like is páistí dubha iad. An 18 go nach bhfuil an planáil faoi láthair go thomláin ag dul a roiig I gceart like.
Is tóché sin bonúsach an príomhrad ará ná go gohíonn na himircí a hagan isteach tá siad a fada ag obair beagnach tá siad níl mór an díobh ag baint leasa sóisialta agus tá siad a fada íáin agus so tá an méid severas a grothíonn siad is tá bhád níos mó severas a chruthú acu ná an costas a bheith a baint le múnseoirí múteoirí nua agus so tá siad antábhachtach is tócha go mbíonn policy an chunig bheith cinnte nach bhfuil aon den na curtha síos mar a dearm gohfuil an óhan múteoirí an áitin bhfuil na himircí ag fannacht agus gohfuil óhan tíhíocht agus mar sin de agus is tócha go núsáidan bud an severas atá crotha ag na himircí chun bheith cinnte nach bhfuil aon den na curtha síos.
Just ceiste bháin eile faoi éire agus in imircí teachtasteach like mar luí mé maiile léir hir tá like angar agus bailí an trálaigh Tuairisc as Béarla agus tá a lán daoine ó tíortha thar lear like agus in a lán áite eile níl mór an in imircí an le cén chuí a tharlíonn sé gur féidir leis an líon war in imircí a bheith cantar áirithe agus níl mór an na ciúin áite eile.
Well sin dear character is an rud dear céine dear canan céine a rinne éireanní nuair a chuir siad thar lear a gcónaí in nua áireach ó níocé deag a raibh hí cósanach agus tá cúis má leis tá an chuid taide denta agus tá spáinn sé go bhfuil sais networks fíorthábhachtach ó thaobh imircí ten tú go dtí ten den airnach go dtí nó áireach nó London nó an Astráil agus bíon cáirde eice an cabhairinn siad le áit dó féine áilt agus posta áilt agus just ólas faoi an chóras atá agus an sais ólas sin an sever agus an tábhacht dó. So tá an déine sé cíú péáte déan tú go mbeadh sais networks mar seo agus go bhanan na himmarcí mar an ggéine. Agus na himmarcí ó tír a bháin fanna siad le chéile agus mar sin mar a rinne muideann ar a chumaid thar lear.
An bhfuil tuairm a got faoi Brexit agus na himmarcí sasanna faoi láthair agus a Beiidir a raibh smíanamh chun teach go dtí sasanna?
Níl tá sí dechar rá ná riire an déine sé mór an difric le fada ná tá immercí ag teachtain air nó sasanna solar oscailmuid na teoranta de tíre ó arthar órap ba hí daine an bhreatain I bhórmhar bhí mar immercí an air an raibh sin. Agus is tócha go bhfuil grúpa an bhór de daine ó bhreatain a gcón. Agus is seans bhfuil nílas a ggéanaan in á riir cad a háláil le Brexit go hálathe tar éis sin nuachta bhí agan inné an táchan sa bhreatain. Ach is tócha go bhfuil anna hans go mé fós mé sé éca go leir bog ó air an gosasan. Tásúla gonne réanas. Is tóbiste mórí man mí sin fear is tócha.
Okay, Frank, ag an náire ag teachtarás go dtí SDGs an bhfuil teachtracht generálta a got faoi just in Immercha generálta agus Beiidir ag luí na SDGs fashion?
Is tócha an tuairm atá agam ná ó thaobh polisathe go bhféadach dul a bhaimar an SDGs ó thaobh an bochtain is a laidú agus ó thaobh just caiid an marachta daine tá anna bhocht sa domhan le 100 milliún daine tá fear bhocht ó thaobh difric dhéanamh agus na SDGs ar fada chur a gréoch I mthuairim se policy ó bháin go deich a bhain go mór ar ná laidú ar cos gan Immercha. Agus an chud taid a gente ag léirú seo agus tá cé leis má bhín seansaigh denna teachtó ó tír ina bhfuil siad beidir unproductive agus dulgadí tír ina bheith siad a bhád níos gur féidir le bhád níos smó crothú. Ginnin sé anna chud severas agus bheith an down ar fád a bhád níos fearr as agus bheith laidú mór an bochtanas. So is tócha níléon SDG ceart ó thaobh an Immercha ach ó thaobh na SDGs ag laidú an bochtanas agus ag denmh an caiid an marachtal níos fearr agus an sláint, cuasaí sláint agus mar sin ó thaobh na rud sin ar fád an policy mór a deich a bhaimar ar na aimne sin ná laidú a chur coscan Immercha go hidirnáisiúnta. Is tócha gur trú é nach bhfuil policy dul ar an tro sin is tócha go bhfuil sais agléir daoine raibh an Immercha san léonnta tá aniu ach I mthuairim sin níl mór an cúiste sin beidir gur Gordon níos mó den na coscanna sin a laidú agus é chur a gríoch.